Well, all right. We are back for panel number 2. And chairing this panel is a great scholar and wonderful person in his own right, Dr. Thomas Fuerst, the author of the recent publication, Prophetic Pearl, African American Prophetic Rhetoric and Call Narratives of the 19th Century. Dr. Fuerst, I turn it over to you, my friend.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. I am excited about this panel. Thank you all for inviting me to chair it. I was locked out the first 10 minutes of the last panel, so I wasn't sure how the introductions happened, but I'd like to open the floor briefly to our three presenters to go ahead and introduce yourselves, and then we will go in order of the program. So we start with Dr. Madlock.
Hi, I am Dr. Annette Madlock, and I am an independent scholar, part-time professor, Bible study author, community advocate, women's health advocate, definitely a womanist scholar, and I am honored to be here today to talk about my favorite topic of Kwanzaa. And I look forward to sharing more about that in a little bit.
Fantastic. Thank you. And then Dr. Woodson.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ashley Woodson. I'm an assistant professor in the Irvin D. Reed Honors College at Wayne State University, and I study strategies and pedagogies for teaching Black freedom movements.
Fantastic. And then Kyle Chitwood.
Hi, I am a incoming third year PhD student at the University of Memphis in the Common Film Department, being advised by someone, Dr. Andre Johnson, if you've heard of him. I'm here studying rhetoric and media. I like focusing on intersections of race, sound, spirituality, and I'm really interested in Rastafari and reggae music and how the different things those communicate.
Thank you, Kyle. All right, let's go ahead. We'll get started with Good Vibrations, Kwanzaa, the mystic power of signs, symbols, and language by Dr. Annette Madlock.
All right, thank you very much for that introduction. So, at some point in my life, I became fascinated with the cultural holiday of Kwanzaa and the African presence in the Bible, in the Christian Bible. So what happened was, I began just kind of looking into it, just trying to find out a little bit more about Kwanzaa and Christianity. And this was early in my Christian walk, early in my education walk. And so this was definitely the early 90s. And it was all triggered because some Christians said that other Christians should not celebrate Kwanzaa. And I was like, what could be so bad about those 7 principles? And so my very first foray into studying the principles had to do with just doing a textual analysis, a comparison of like the Beatitudes and any other principles that were comparative within that biblical Christian text. So that was a master's thesis completed at a wonderful Christian institution, Swedish Baptist. So if you need to know anything about Swedish Baptist, just ask me. That's where I learned about all the different kinds of Baptists, because I didn't know anything about that. But Bethel College, now Bethel University. So that was that first rhetorical study. And then the next one for my dissertation at Howard University, I again looked at Kwanzaa, but then I was looking at Kwanzaa and how it was used for ministry and outreach. And so what that rhetoric looked like. And I was looking at fantasy theme analysis, but I was looking at the retention of the fantasy theme and how that kind of worked on and moved on. But now I'm really looking at this whole idea of trying to solve this problem that we have about building a beloved community. That's another piece that I'm looking at. So I didn't do any fancy slides because this for me is definitely a work in progress. And this work in progress has an end result that I have to have finished by the end of the year for publication. But I'm looking at that. And so with the background and context of Kwanzaa as an African American and Pan-African holiday developed by Dr. Malana Karanga and members of the US organization, with the focus to celebrate family, community, and culture. So it was definitely founded during the Black consciousness movement, and it reflects the era of activism and a call for unity. So I was thinking about that, looking at that. And then I was also thinking about the concept and the idea of nomo that comes with the rhetorical tradition, but then also with this vibrational frequency that comes, that it relates to the spoken word, visualization and thought, and topics that intersect spirituality, religion, and metaphysics. So although the traditions that come with that are connected to our academic and interdisciplinary frameworks that have to do with the whole idea of linguistics and sociolinguistics, language, and the idea that Kwanzaa also uses Swahili as part of its signs and symbols and language when it talks about the 7 principles, the Nguzo Saba, and other imagery. So I'm also looking at visual rhetoric and how that comes together to create messages. And then there's semiotics, because we have to look at how are we decoding the signs and symbols of Kwanzaa. And when I'm thinking about this and pulling this together, during the earlier discussions of Kwanzaa and during the early research of Kwanzaa, the negative perceptions came from Black nationalism and the fact that people just didn't like Malana Karanga and his history. But now there's another contention that comes up, and now everything is witchcraft. And so now it's like I'm like, okay. So now just kind of finding a way to kind of just dissect that within the scope of this work, because it's like we're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And so looking at the Kuwaiti philosophy that the Kwanzaa, this cultural holiday, was built on, and there are some elements that folks are calling ancestor worship, and it's not ancestor worship, it's just that memory, ancestral memory that Kwanzaa reflects on, and respect for the ancestors. But one thing, I want to share my screen with you because I do want to show you that even the 7 principles of Kwanzaa has a visual symbology that I am looking at. Can you all see that? The official website? Okay, good. All right, so the Nguzo Saba, the 7 principles here, each one, so in addition to having the Swahili term, umoja, for the English word unity, there's also a visual representation. So each one, Kujichagulia, Ujima, Ujama, Nia, Kumba, Imani, each one has its own visual representation. So they're coming from Adinkra symbols. And then even the candles, the table setup, the fruit, the books, everything in this represents a community. It represents collective work and responsibility. It represents family. It represents the children. it represents the elders. There's a representation here. And so when we think about everyone coming together, because that's one of the five, there's elements to Kwanzaa that calls for people coming together and that community. And so when we think about what's happening right now, the destruction of community, and then trying to pull together the beloved community, I'm thinking about using the signs and the symbols of Kwanzaa, and everybody being on that same frequency, on the same page. We have so many different words for everybody being united and a force coming together to create this this rebuilding of our community, this rebuilding of our families, and even rebuilding of our sacred spaces, our churches, in person, not online. There's something to be said about all of that. So that's where this work is it's talking about. And so I'm gonna spend a lot of time delving into quantum physics. And so because it's a rhetorical a space here, I won't talk a lot about that. However, there is a connection between vibration and frequency because everything moves. Nothing stands still. Nothing stands still. And that has been proven scientifically. So even when we are laid to rest in the ground, because we are still moving, that is why we turn to dust. So, and that is scientifically proven. So the words that we say have a frequency to them. The rhythm, the music that we listen to, there's a frequency to all of that. And that is part of the power of that spoken word that comes with everyone, because there's within Kwanzaa there are greetings that we say to each other that are Habari Gani, what's the news? And then there's that call and response that comes back and forth with that. So this is what I'm working with. So there's that visual rhetoric piece, how things are put together. I have been visiting one place here in Wisconsin. They are the largest and the longest running Kwanzaa celebration in the country. It happens at the Wisconsin African American Historical Society and Museum. So, and I should say the Wisconsin Black Historical Society and Museum, which focuses strictly on the African American presence in the state of Wisconsin. So that's that particular museum. And then the other museum here is the Black Holocaust Museum here in Wisconsin, is where another big Kwanzaa space happened. So there's a lot of history, and then some of the other locations throughout the U.S. just kind of tapping in to find out how is that tradition still being carried, because it ebbs and flows. It ebbs and flows with the traditions. So just kind of looking at the influences there, and the role of language and ethics, social identity, and group solidarity, and definitely the decoding of the signs and the interconnectedness of just community and traditional African values. And dealing with the African cosmology piece, I'm going to have to deal with the witchcraft piece. So that's where I'm at in my work in progress. So I'm just going to say, if you believe in the Lord, pray for me, because it's going to be work getting through that one, because I'm literally, everything is witchcraft. Everything is witchcraft now. Woo! Dr. Johnson.
Thank you, Dr. Madlock.
You're welcome.
Fantastic presentation. Thank you. Excited to see where that goes. Could we go ahead and what we'll do is, like in the last panel, we'll come back and ask questions as a group later. So I'd like to go on and give Dr. Ashley Woodson who is presenting on a womanist approach to food justice. And I'd like to give Dr. Woodson a chance to present as well.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to be here today with y'all and presenting a work in progress. Um, so uh, I started this journey studying symbols that inspire civic action in social studies classrooms for Black children and landed on the kitchen table as one that might be that. And I came across, let's see if I can do it, that meme that I just dropped in the chat. Damn shame they don't make those have you ate yet women anymore. We joke that they don't cook like Big Mama anymore, but the thing is, we're actually right. So I started this journey thinking about kitchen tables as a symbol of epistemic achievement in Black feminist theorizing. But that took me to a place where I'm now more interested in kitchen tables as part of womanist iconography and what it means to lose kitchen tables as a point of reference in hustle culture, which I understand as a symptom of neoliberalism. So I am absolutely on that fence and naming Black feminism appropriately and then also naming womanism appropriately. So I hope for some feedback but I am standing on the shoulders of Katie Cannon, Alice Walker, Clenora Hudson Weems, and Karen Baker Fletcher, among others. But I've also been really interested in the work of Bayina Jeffries on women in the Nation of Islam and Rima Vesley Flad and her work on Black women in Buddhist traditions. So all right. So the work in progress is a book proposal, Womanism and Hot Chips, which builds knowledge about Black girls' food citizenship and why snackification, the global trend towards smaller, more individualized meals, is a womanist issue. I hope to make three central contributions. First, detailing how snackification, shrinking school hours, and less family time shape Black girls' understanding of God, food, community, and each other. To present a case study of Hot Chips Girl, a controlling image constructed nationally through memes that caricature Black girlhood and ghetto aesthetics. And then finally, making meaningful connections across work in womanist studies, feminist studies, and critical food studies. So I'm going to ask y'all to vibe with me and listen to the first couple paragraphs of what I hope is the introduction. The gods of Black people love food. It's written all throughout our scriptures and baked into our superstitions. It could be that the world only turns if someone leaves out cornmeal, offers sweet potatoes, sips grape juice in communion, fasts in solidarity with the poor, burns sage to exercise Black energy, or pours one out for the homies. Our deities even invite us to dinner parties. The Prophet Muhammad described rivers of milk, honey, and wine in paradise, and Jesus promised to babysit his glass of wine until his friends pulled up in glory. Food is so fundamental to living that we can't imagine an afterlife without it. A plantation poet asked to be buried with cornbread in hand and a jar of molasses at his feet. At my church growing up, we sang a song anticipating lavish cookouts in heaven. Come on in where the table is spread and the feast of the Lord is going on. As with any dinner party, we ask, who are going to be over there? And the gods answer, Black people. I don't know who made the macaroni and cheese, but my Aunt Patricia is already in heaven, so I'm sure we'll be fine. As above, so below. Soul food is a witness to how well we make something out of nothing. I've seen us resist temptation in Saginaw's food deserts, walk on water in Flint, and feed multitudes in Detroit. My mother's cabbage soup heals the sick. My grandmother taught me how to turn water into wine in her bathtub. Black people remake food in our image every day, and Black women, specifically Black women, we will prepare a table before you in the presence of your enemies. I'm talking beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, lamb, ram, hog, maw, chicken, turkey, rabbit, you name it. For many Black women, the day begins and ends with labor related to food. We call on and become supernatural forces to feed ourselves, our children, and our communities. The stains on our aprons prove submission to the Good Shepherd's conditional command, if you love me, feed my sheep. We show love through centuries of leadership in agriculture, domestic labor, and food work. We show love by preserving indigenous food science and everything from herbal remedies to dessert recipes. We show our love through food justice campaigns like the Black Panther Party's People's Free Food Program led by Ruth Beckford and Erica Huggins, or the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children championed by Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm. We show love through interpretations of love that set new precedents for human possibility. The prophets teach that the best of you are those who feed others, while Black women's engagement with the sacred extends far beyond our commitment to safe, sufficient, and sustainable food. Food work is an important way we participated in the signs and wonders of fellowship, intervention, and provision. Kitchens are symbols of divine agency. Our food activism is grounded in the conviction that we can manifest heaven on earth. I am reminding you of this conviction because we are being called to defend Black girls' food citizenship. Yes, another thing to defend. I know you're tired. The moral arc of the universe is bending toward chaos, and these young ones are on your last nerves, mine too. But we have a serious problem. Black girls aren't spending enough time in the kitchen. Don't read what I'm not writing. This is about more than the occasional trip to McDonald's on the way home from school. I'll put it another way. Black girls' access to kitchens is shrinking. The productivity demands we place on our little sisters in hustle culture are radically different than the demands placed on generations before them. They are not choosing to leave the kitchen, they are being pulled out of the kitchen and away from their elders, traditions, recipes, blessings, instruction, and other resources they need to survive. The hours that Black girls should be somewhere cooking and eating together with families are shifting to practices that make them spiritually vulnerable as citizens and consumers. Time in front of vending machines and quick serve kiosks, overpaying at convenience stores, behind fast food counters, in an exploitative food gig economy, and sneaking snacks in between classes. The stakes are quite high. Our resistance requires the kitchen. Eating together preserves movements. The kitchen is where many of us learned that there was a movement in the first place. The rest of this chapter presents womanist theology as inspiration for reimagining food citizenship for Black girls. Womanism is a liberation theology that holds kitchens as sacred, tries to feed everybody, and protects time to eat as a matter of human dignity. I'll tell you more later. I chose womanism to set Black girls' food citizenship as a practical and spiritual priority. Their changing access to kitchens indicates the broader erosion of soul and civic ties in hustle culture. I am convinced that resisting this erosion requires faith and an approach to hermeneutical justice that honors the myriad of ways that we have and will become miracles to feed our children. I wasn't paying attention to time. How much time do I have left?
You got plenty of time.
Sorry, you're good. Yeah, you're good.
Okay. On being brought from Africa to America, so that's invoking Phyllis Wheatley. Some women were made, but me, myself, I like to think that I was created for a special purpose, and that's invoking Beyonce. Black women and girls are either children of the moon, the aftermath of a big bang, molded from clay, or remixed from the rib of a man. Then it gets really interesting. An FA origin story says that a pregnant woman craved forbidden fruit from the tahu tree. When her husband gave in and stole some from her, God released death and other evils into the world. In another origin story, a jealous woman killed the plant that predicted the resurrection of her sister wife. God numbered the days of all people, plants, and animals as a permanent reminder of that betrayal. In the Torah and Quran, the first woman and her husband eat fruit from a tree that teaches the difference between good and evil. God had reserved this knowledge for angels and made people mortal so that they would not become the same as gods. We are meant to recognize the vulnerability of women who are naked, hungry, desperate, and under judgment. The desires of these women define the limits of our existence. I am so perfect, so divine, so ethereal, so surreal. I cannot be comprehended except for my permission. Invoking Nikki Giovanni. After Genesis comes Exodus. Around the 17th century, slavery and indentured servitude were common global practices. A person or people could be enslaved as punishment for a crime, as prisoners of war, or to satisfy a debt. The system of slavery that Europe implemented in its colonies was some particularly wild. I use the S word, but I'll say stuff because I don't know how everybody gets down with vulgarity. Okay. In 1662, the Jamestown, Virginia colony adopted partes sequitur ventrum, a legal code stating that the children of enslaved African women were automatically also slaves. Before partes, at least some Black women and girls in the colonies had standing to appeal the status of their offspring. They even experienced various degrees of success in the early American court system. The new laws dramatically altered the racial, spiritual, and gendered contract of the colonies and normalized rape as a method of producing workers for the plantation economy. Partis created Black women and girls again, as our fertility became the leading means of workforce development in the Americas. We could now expect the exploitation of reproductive labor through forced breeding, the erosion of maternal bonds, the rejection of personhood and the right to self-defense, and strained access to the erotic as a source of power and self-determination. By 1676, the ownership class in the Americas made enslavement the assumed condition for all people of African descent. This collapsed all African people into a new category of people, a social group bound together by mass kidnapping and intergenerational bondage. Imagine being kidnapped and then tested on your tribe's theology. Our ancestors recreated religion based on memory and melanin alone. Admit it, if it were you, we would be so messed up, worse than we are already. There's a reason why reverence for ancestors is prevalent in our faith traditions. Of all the things to remember, they felt that we'd need philosophies and practices that bring us closer to God. One method of preservation was proverbs, short instructions that describe our duties to one another, to the ancestors, and to the divine beings who sustain human life and created order. So many proverbs mention food that it's hard to believe our author ancestors chose the theme for the hell of it. Sow in the right season and make sure no one goes hungry. One who eats alone cannot discuss the taste of food with others. A patient woman will eat ripe fruit. In addition to the proverbs, there were folk tales. Nearly every time Anansi the spider got hungry, he did something shady as hell. He once sold his daughter to death for some barbecue. These are stories we tell to children, which is why they are important. Those who came before us had visions of our current condition and decided that in the face of scarcity, especially in the face of scarcity, the decisions we make about food are important. How we grow, prepare, and share food matters. They wanted us to have stories where wisdom is rewarded, greed has consequences, and good food is a cause for celebration. They wanted us to make judgments about the politics, labor, etiquette, and emotions of food. Food ethics are part of a meaningful and virtuous life. I will skip ahead to the definition of womanism that I'm hoping to present, and I will end there if I can find it. All right, so womanism is a liberation theology, as many have already noted in their works today. I am suggesting that womanism pursues the character of the divine through the experiences of Black women and girls. And it does so to expand the ontological reach of love and theology to include ever more diverse people. And it positions Black women and girls as prophets and philosophers of their own traditions toward a freedom that we have yet to realize in the material world. So that's what I have. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dr. Woodson. Appreciate that presentation. That was fantastic. All right, let's go to Kyle Chitwood on let's see, where are we here? Sights and sounds, communicating reggae sound system knowledge through visual media representation. Thank you, Kyle. Go ahead.
All right. Cool. I do have a presentation to share with y'all, so give me just 1 second. I'll pull that up. Uh, da, 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 da. All right. Can we see everything? All good. Cool. I need to get in the presentation mode. Okay. Okay, so yes, the title of this project is Sights and Sound Systems. communicating reggae sound system knowledge through visual media representation. So this essay is responding to a question from Esther Mailu's and Ronisha Browdy's essay on global Black rhetorics, which is a framework for engaging with Black diasporic rhetorics from around the globe. And they pose a lot of questions in the essay. One of them stood out to me, and they ask, how are digital technologies and new genres like hip hop, reggae, film, and social media facilitating circulation of new Black knowledges, rhetorics, and literacies within the Afro-diasporic / global Black world? And so my response to this question and what I'll be arguing in this essay is that circulating Black rhetorics among broader mediated audiences necessitates that rhetors intersect various media to more authentically or more accurately represent culturally specific knowledges. So to make this argument, I will examine a 2023 performance from Kebra Ethiopia Sound System. They are based in South Africa, and this performance took place in a township outside of Johannesburg. This performance was uploaded onto YouTube, which was in collaboration with Boiler Room. Boiler Room is a platform for showcasing dance and club cultures from around the globe as well. When we exploring this video, it lets us see how Kebra Ethiopia intersects film and social media to facilitate the circulation of knowledges that emerge from Rastafari. So I need to give some background on Rastafari and sound system a little bit before we get into kind of the findings of this analysis. So I'll give y'all a little background. I do want to play just a small clip from this video so that y'all can really see what I'm talking about. And then I'll go through these different findings that I have. So Rastafari is a religious faith that emerged in the 1930s Jamaica, and it saw a global spread in the 1970s and 80s with the rise of reggae music and folks like Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, Bunny Wailer, etc. There are a lot of beliefs, a lot of teachings in Rastafari. So very broadly, I just want to go over some that are relevant to this video and to this study. So Rastafari promotes Pan-African visions. It promotes a unity, a oneness, broadly among individuals in society, but especially among African diasporic peoples. And it also promotes a de-hierarchized relation among people and environments, kind of shifting the subject other orientation to something that's more holistic, less of the Western dualism, and something that's more whole. So that's Rastafari. Sound system is a music culture. It's a dance culture that developed in 1960s, at least the 1960s Jamaica, with the advent of ska music. And then as ska from the 60s into the 70s, as it transitioned into reggae music and incorporated Rastafari teachings into the genre, sound system practitioners would also incorporate Rasta practices into their work. So some example of this, besides the Rastafari-inspired lyrics that are common in reggae music, sound system practitioners use the genres, use reggae's rhythms and sounds to sort of prove a oneness that exists among people and environments. So using often custom-made speaker systems that emphasize really bass-heavy music, bass-heavy sounds. Sound systems will push low frequencies that create a sort of shared vibration among people in the dance. The idea is that like literally everybody is on the same frequency. So there is a sonic dominance about sound system. It is very much what's the word? It focuses on sound. It's a sonic medium. But then, so there's a question, I guess, that comes up is like, what happens when this medium gets translated onto a different media, a different platform? So Kebra Ethiopia here shows us how these low frequencies, how sound system and Rastafari knowledge that is in sound system dance, like in the dance hall, can be represented via visual text. Now, I want to preface that not all like sound system crews or practitioners are or identify with Rastafari, but when the practitioners do identify, there's some different knowledges that come about. So really quickly, that's just the background that I can give right now. I want to play like just 30 seconds or a minute of this video. Hopefully technology will be on our side. Can y'all hear that? It came up. Was there a thumbs up on the sound? All right, I'm gonna trust it.
No, we couldn't.
What are the community? What are the people? What are the people?
Can't hear the music.
I'm sorry? Oh, I thought someone said something. Okay.
Yeah, you can't hear the music.
You can't hear the music part. Yeah.
You have to have the shared video when you do the share. You have to have share video. It's a button on there.
Share sound. I see it. I see it. Okay. Take two.
What are the community? For the people. For the people. Yes. What a federation. Go. All over creation. Not only in a jam, yo. It's only inflation. All over creation, yo. And now be a starvation. Not only in a jam, yo. I'm missing cows.
Okay. So I just wanted to give y'all a glimpse of how the dance is being shot, the way the different camera angles and everything that's working. So generally the video is shot from 3 different perspectives. There are 2 stationary cameras, one that captures the massive speaker setup and the turntable setup. These are what I'm calling crew shots. That's what you hear on, or that's what you see on the screen now. I'll just go through these one by one. That'll be easier. So these are going to be the crew shots, what I'm calling these crew shots. So what does this shot specifically communicate? So crew shots depict the sort of sonic dominance that is asserted by the sound system. The shot also depicts the spiritual, the kind of spiritual essence to the dance, to the video. Where am I? And it also emphasizes a de-hierarchization between the crew and the crowd. All right, so if you look at the frame here, the large speakers, really they take up like the majority of the shot and they tower over everybody. This is really like demonstrating really the power of the sound here, the focus on the sound, right? The 2 speakers and the turntable really focus on what is the important thing here, not necessarily the DJ's manipulation of the sound, but more so what is the sound doing to people in the dance. So we have the sonic dominance there. We also see, if you see in the top right corner here, there looks to be what appears like a church. I did some deep diving. I went on like Google Maps and everything to see like where this road was and if that was a church and what it was, but I couldn't find that. I just saw that in the video, it appears to be a church. We have the cross in the top right corner. This cross captured here, in a way, it gives a spiritual essence, but it also reflects Marcus Garvey's supposed message to look to the east, where a Black king shall be crowned, And many Rastas have interpreted this as as a prophecy to the coronation of Haile Selassie in Ethiopia, who many Rastas regard as the second coming of Christ. So we have this, cross rising from the right-hand side, which would be on the east side if you're looking at a map. Okay, and then finally, this shot also shows a de-hierarchization of between the crew and the crowd. This is a big practice in sound system, which is really for everyone to be in the shared sonic space, right? It's not a DJ's playing out to a crowd, but it's us experiencing the sound together. So the space shown between the turntable and the speakers, we have the selector and the MC right here. But we also have people all in attendance in the background, and people are moving by the speakers. People come and stand right in front of the speaker, right? So this kind of emphasizes the de-hierarchical nature of sound system. The second perspective that this video shows is what I'm calling crown shots. I'm calling them crown shots because this is sort of coming from, this is the bird's eye view. This is like a divine perspective of the dance, essentially. Now we still have the sonic dominance. We could still plainly see the speakers here. We can still see the cross that's on rising on the right side of the shot. We also have a de-hierarchization of space because you could barely tell where the crew is in this shot. Something that's really neat about this shot, or something is communicated here. These crown shots also emphasize the Pan-African vision of many Rastafari teachings. So like I said, these shots are depicted from a bird's eye view, a sort of divine, omnipotent perspective. From this view, these crown shots show this line dancing that's going on. This line dancing is different than from what I'm used to seeing, but it communicates something, significant visually. So this line dancing shows a unification of people moving together, moving as one, despite being across a divide. That's, Western logics would typically, divide places, divide peoples and places, and that would make things more easy to manage that way. But this shot here kind of shows how, despite being across or divide, that there's still people moving together and people still moving as one. And then finally, we have crowd shots. So the first two were stationary cameras that were just there the whole shot. The rest of the shots are handheld shots, really capturing people in the dance, everyone who's there, right? A lot of older men here, younger men and women, children there. I don't know if you saw when I played the script, there was one little child who was running down the middle of the line dancing. Now, what these crowd shots do is that they work to invite a viewer to identify with attendees and express the emotions of people in the dance. Part of the proof of sound systems unifying aspects involve the actual sound waves that are penetrating the body that are getting people again on the same frequency. However, as a viewer watching this on YouTube, it's not likely that you're listening or watching this video with the powerful speakers that they have. I'm even watch it on my sound bar at home, and it's nice and got a great sound, but it's not that same experience. So this is what of the crowd shots work to supplement, right? These crowd shots work to relate the unified affective experience of the viewer. Yeah. So I'm gonna escape out of this. Essentially, this video just comes down to show how culturally specific knowledge and culturally specific experiences are and must be presented in such a way that it communicates a similar message as the live event. Working the cameras in a different way, I've communicated some ideas that the sound system crew were not looking to express. For instance, if they put the speaker from, or put the camera from behind the crew and played it out to the crowd, that could emphasize more of a hierarchy rather than focusing the speakers on the sound, if that makes sense. Something I'm thinking about in regard to this video, the platform that it was uploaded on and the colonial logic used in social media, but there's also talk in the last panel about pocketing some things for later. I might think about doing that as well. So thank y'all for listening. I look forward to any feedback that y'all have.
Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate you your work. So great panel. I was looking at it yesterday. I thought, what do these things have in common? And as I was listening to all of you speak, there were several things that stood out to me that commonalities together. Particularly, what I found interesting was how there's an emphasis on embodied rhetoric, whether that is in expression of ritual or dance or even food. And in this embodied rhetoric, there is also in all of these a breakdown of, Kyle mentioned it explicitly, but there's a breakdown of Western binaries between the public and private, between community and individual. And so there are several things at play here that I think connect these. I would like to open the floor for discussion, but how about I start us off, and then just sort of get the ball rolling, and I'll allow other people to jump in and give some feedback and ask questions. This question actually is for two of you. This is for Dr. Madlock and then Kyle. It was interesting to me the way you both Kyle got at it a little more explicitly, but from Kwanzaa is part of my tradition, but from what I understand, dance is also a pretty significant part of Kwanzaa. Am I correct about that?
There are part of the celebratory aspects of Kwanzaa. There is African dance and drumming, and so that is very vibrational for that.
Yeah.
So that comes in with that. So Kwanzaa has 5 standard sets of values. So the ingathering of the people. So everybody's coming in to celebrate. That's family, that's community, to renew and strengthen bonds. And the food is a big part of it. Kind of just commitment to each other and uniting. And then there's reverence for the creator and all of creation. So that's a big reflection there, because it's based on harvest festivals and traditions. And so there's a respect for environment, humanity, the animals, the plants, the water, air, the land, natural resources. So it encourages all those things. And then commemoration of the past, remembering and honoring the ancestors, what happened before us, and then the recommitment to highest ideals, core values, good life, truth, justice, brotherhood, sisterhood, elders, neighbor, and then that's where the 7 principles, and then celebration of the good, bringing good into the world, and that's a reflection of just gratitude, remembrance, and then that's where the dance and the drumming and part of that celebration aspect will come in. And so how do you answer the question? And that's the question: how do we use Kwanzaa 365 to build our community every single day, to bring it into the community every day?
Yeah, I was thinking, and thank you for that. I was thinking that I would imagine that there's work out there done in the field of rhetoric and rhetorical analysis on dance as visual rhetoric. And I wonder how that might enhance your various analyses of whether it's Kwanzaa or this group dancing happening in the reggae setting. It just might provide some more language and structure around what you're already just naturally getting at, because you're talking about the sound and the vibrations and the rhetoric of the actual sound, which is brilliant. But then bodies are also responding to that sound, and how the rhetoric of bodily movement is kind of feeding back into how the community is forming itself in solidarity and democratization and liberation.
Right, but
So that
not
was
just about dancing, not just about dancing.
sure, right, yeah. But as one aspect of it. So that was an opening thought
Yep.
question, and I would like to open the floor to anybody else. And you all can obviously include Dr. Woodson in your questions as well.
Well, I can start with Dr. Woodson. There is it's in the UK, but they talk about food and the importance of food, and they gather and meet every year to and they hit upon what your paper talks about. So I'll give you the gentleman's name as another maybe another resource. So it's international, but just thinking about how we look at food and how we are how the separation of our community has come because we don't even take the time to have dinner together anymore. The things that it's like learning how to cook now. Nobody, because we don't have time to teach the girls or the boys how to cook. So that's it's really significant, because those are some of the things that I'm coming across as I'm asking and looking at how are we in gathering our people and answering the question, how are we solving the problem of the disintegration of our community and our families? How are we fixing that? So yeah. Thank you for your presentation. It was beautiful.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I got my hand up, so I was waiting for that. I'm Dr. Anthony Everett, BSK Theological Seminary, and just all three. Dr. Madlock, I was wondering, had you read any of John Mbiti's work?
I haven't run across his name.
Okay.
I've been looking at Theophilus Smith, Conjure Culture, and Misome. It's about ritual, and I'm probably not saying the name correctly, but it's about ritual, and definitely Asante's work, and there's some others that I've looked at, but that name, it does not sound familiar. So could you put that in the text in the chat so I can get it
Sure.
right?
Yeah, he wrote a book called African Religions and Philosophy.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think that's something that you
Let
want to
me make
check
sure I
out.
don't even have that on my shelf. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'll look at that. Sure. I don't have
Okay.
it.
And then Dr. Wood. Man. Whoa. What was it? It was something good. Oh, yeah. There's another book. This came out not too long ago. It was by an author named Crystal Wilkerson. She writes this book called Praise Song for the Kitchen Ghost: Stories and Recipes from 5 Generations of Black Country Cooks. And thought it might be, I don't know if you've read that or seen that, so if you haven't, that might be something to consider, taking a look at. So,
Thank you for affirming that. I am a big fan of Dr. Wilkerson's work.
it's my friend.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. And then Kyle. So back in the day, I was a selector. And so one of the things, a couple things come to mind here when you're talking about all of this. So I would say if you want to go deeper, for instance, look at the comparison of hold on, I wrote this down, so pull it back up. So excuse me for a second. 12 Tribe and Bingi, Judah Coptic and Boba Shanti. And then also when you're talking about the convergence from ska to reggae, you have to add in mento as well, and even an R&B for the United States. And then this reimagining of what has happened from uh, the sound system to hip hop, which New York hip hop, with its predecessor being the predecessor of New York hip hop through Kool Herc and his sound system. And my question for you though, what's the connection between Joburg and Jamaica? And that's rhetorical, you know. So that's what I got for you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I'm glad to have you here. That's so cool. Um, yeah, I wish there was more that I could have shared with the time, but I'll definitely look at those and see what we can get out of that.
Oh,
Yeah, I want to
Oh,
follow Dr. Everett's point about Kyle.
Yeah.
When we look at that video, you could not help but to go back to early days of hip hop when folk had street parties, and that's exactly what was going on. Big speakers. You mentioned Kool Herc, and we have talked about the connection between Kool Herc and Rasta music, and also you got some nice connections there, and we are excited about your work and about what all the stuff you're going to find as well too. And did we ever find Tom? You had asked a question about who was on the shirt. Did we ever get that? In the chat. Maybe I just haven't seen it.
yeah,
Yeah,
Kyle
that
said it
was
was highly.
Oh, so,
yeah,
okay, cool.
yeah.
Makes sense.
I wanted to also comment on Dr. Woodson, and really the first thing I wanted to say about this was, and I'm sure that Dr. Madlock and Kyle are also fantastic writers, but they were you specifically shared what you had written, and your writing is incredible. I found myself listening to you, and I was jealous. Where your ethos, pathos, and logos come together uh, was just, I mean, it was energizing to listen to, and that says a lot about like the experience of people who will read it later. Um, I love the idea of the sort of divinization of food culture, the combination of what would be, at least in the West, a historical binary between uh, uh, a philosophical binary between this sort of mundane and the sacred, but how you're sacralizing the space of the kitchen, which and I love that for multiple reasons, not least of which is the resistance element to it. That at least in feminism, the thing was to always escape the kitchen, right? And you're reclaiming it as this sacred space where meaningful, divine, spiritual, religious, metaphysical conversation happens. And there is a resistance there, to a strong resistance to the public private binary as itself destructive to the lives of young Black women. And so, and then also your not so implicit critique of the disintegration of community that happens through capitalist mechanisms. I wonder if have you done any research on, and I don't know if this exists, but I would be surprised if it didn't, on how sacred space functions as a rhetoric and how that might play into your analysis.
You froze for me during part of the call.
Did Yeah, so I was wondering like if you have done any reading on sacred space and how it might function as a rhetoric and how that could
I have
play into
not,
your
and that
analysis.
is those are Google Scholar keyword searches that will inspire the rest of my day. I am not as well versed in the rhetoric component of it.
Gotcha.
And I'm looking for sources and inspiration there. So if folks have them,
Yeah.
I got my email in the chat as well. I welcome those recommendations.
Even in religious studies work, I know, like going back to like Mircea Eliade, you have the sacred space rhetoric, where the sacred space is the place where the divine and the human commune, right? But he's primarily talking about it in terms of temple spaces or sanctuary spaces. And I think what you're brilliantly doing is moving the sacred space into the space of the mundane, the kitchen, and showing that that's the place actually where heaven and earth come together. And I just think there's like a lot of religious studies and rhetorical analysis possibility there. You're already doing it. I just think there might be some resources for you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else?
I actually wanted to shout out Dr. Madlock and the difficulty of thinking about indigenous African practices and traditional African religions and how that bleeds into witchcraft so quickly, and then how witchcraft is stigmatized, right? So I think even in writing within the community, that's been very difficult for me. So since you named that, can you share some of the strategies or some of the thoughts that you've been using to navigate that space so that the writing is still received, right, by those who we're writing with and for?
I'll go back to the Christian Bible and look at specific scripture, depending on the topic and who I'm talking to, and look at the scripture in context, and then look at or look at a specific example. And so one of the examples I think about is the ancestral worship. So I'll say, you have memories of your grandmother, your aunt, grandfather, someone in your family that was important to you. So are you going to stop looking at your family photographs? Are you going to stop having memories of your family? Are you going to stop when you have your prayer of Thanksgiving? Are you going to stop saying, "Oh, I'm so thankful that my grandmother did this for us and our family"? Are you going to stop doing those things? Well, that's what you're doing when you are being thankful during this collective communal celebration of remembering. It's a remembrance of ancestors. It is not a worship of ancestors. And so it's just a big explosion. And definitely Beyonce is a witch, Taylor Swift is a witch, and hip hop brought in witchcraft when you think about music, because it's exploded everywhere. So things that used to be not an issue have moved into that space. So I definitely have to just look, and I early on, before it was a big deal, because I was a nosy teenager, I studied the book of Leviticus, and I looked at every stone and crystal on those Levitical priest vests, and they have a name, and there's incense going on, and then you better look at that Ethiopian Coptic text and some of those things, and then think about that. And then the other aspect of it is we're also dealing with a colonized mind. So you can accept the Eurocentric view of Christianity, but you won't accept your a Black view and perspective to bring in some Black culture, African culture that's brought over and just kept by your ancestors, because that's not even sometimes accepted by your African brothers and sisters, because it changed, because as it was said earlier, it's what we kept and what we remembered that we're practicing. And so sometimes we have to get through that part, that white is right and Black get back. So there's some of that going on in there. So depending on who you're talking to, you just have to have your arsenal ready. And then sometimes it's like, well, you know what? this is not my battle. I got other things. I have other things to do. I'm not called on this one. I'll have to call Dr. Johnson, Reverend Dr. Johnson. I'm gonna pass it on. So yeah, so that's how I've worked with that one. So
Thank you so much.
you're welcome.
Let me say this. I see you all are going to force us to host a sinners panel. We're gonna have to talk about the center. So I know it. I've been putting it off, but yeah, it sounds that's where this conversation is going. Go ahead, Tom. I think Christine has her hand up.
Yeah, hey, this is just really super interesting to me because what I've been looking into is how power was taken away from women who, right, had maybe a connection with the divine, right, in Europe, right, with the witch hunts and witch trials, right, and that was taking power from women who, were the healers and who, knew things about the earth and, that whole connection to embodiment. So this has been just great. So thank y'all. Great information.
Anybody else? Well, friends, you did a fantastic job. I was thoroughly impressed with those presentations. So let's give them a hand and grateful for you all and your fantastic contributions to race, rhetoric, and religion. I'll hand it back over to the esteemed Dr. Johnson to give us instructions about what comes next.
Well, we are going to take a break until 12 noon, and for the lunch hour, you can go grab a sandwich or something, or maybe not even come back because it's getting ready to go downhill because this other guy is getting ready to come and try to say a few words, but you do not have to listen to him. But no, if you stick around, I want to just talk a little bit about this 2024 election and try to offer some explanation from a rhetorical point of view. And so I do invite you to come back and hang out a little bit with that. And so it is my own work in progress that I'm doing. I thought I would share a little bit of what I was doing as well with the group so that, hey, just demonstrating the show, we all got some work in progress. We were all thinking, everybody got about 3 or 4 articles in their head or a book or two just rolling in your head, just thinking about it. So I wanted to get that out and get some feedback on that as well too. So come on back straight up at 12 noon. It is the lunch hour, so you can have some, your food, your snacks and all of that. I do have a PowerPoint that I will share as well. And then we'll have a Q&A, and we will stop around 12:45, somewhere around that time. If we go over, that's fine. But we'll come back after that at 1:30. So let's take a break. See you in about, 20 minutes.